What's up, y'all? Welcome to another successful Sundays. Welcome to another successful Sunday. Of course, Coach AJ, Dope Life Coach, the dopest life coach out there. And today we're going to be talking about shrinking ourselves and how we tend to shrink ourselves in boxes and in areas of our life. But the truth is, we were taught this. This is something that we've been taught. It's not your fault so much, but the greatest part about learning things is as an adult, we get to unlearn them. So, first things first, we're going to start with three deep breaths to just kind of cleanse the air and get us just feeling good and grounded. So, I invite you to close your eyes and just take a moment. I want you to think about all the great things you're going to do this week. Because say Sunday, it's the first day of the week. I want you to visualize, like vision yourself doing them and accomplishing them, not with pressure, but just getting them done at your pace. So you're going to inhale through your nose, exhale out through your mouth. Two more times. Inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. Once more. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Okay, that's what's up. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, affirmation for today is I put energy into things that matter to me. I put energy into things that matter to me. So, the things that matter to you right now is yourself, because we're no longer going to be shrinking ourselves in areas to make other people feel comfortable while we are holding ourselves back. Because a lot of us do it not just in our personal area, we do it professionally as well. So we're going to tap in a little bit of that. So before we continue, if you're new here, hit subscribe, hit follow, and let's get into what shrinking is. Shrinking is having an idea and not sharing it in a setting of like meetings. You're just constantly holding back. Maybe even in school, you have an assignment you're doing and you're not saying a word. Disagree, but stay silent. It's okay to disagree for others to agree or disagree to agree. It's okay. But staying silent, you're suppressing that when you're really like, nah, that's not cool. I don't like how you treated someone. I don't like how this is going. It's okay to disagree and agree, but also speaking up. You're apologizing when you did absolutely nothing wrong, but you're just doing it in a to like kind of like be a team player or considerate or humble and just sit there and not have your feelings being hurt, even though you've done nothing wrong. So, shrinking a lot, that's why I want you to feel bad about this because I want you to remember this. It's not your fault. We use shrinking as self protection and we disguise it in the sense of politeness. So, we're shrinking ourselves in environments so that we make other people feel comfortable and they don't look at us as we're the bad person. I've done this before. I think we've all kind of maybe been there before. Looking at ourselves as a team player, considerate, and humble. Now, shrinking is making less than to avoid discomfort. So we make less than of a situation or an environment that we don't feel comfortable in or something's happening to avoid the discomfort of the confrontation that we're possibly going to have with someone. But here's the problem. Again, it's not your fault because you've been taught these things and you've just carried them into your adulthood. You've been taught that don't be too loud. How many times have you been said, "Oh, you're being too loud. Just stay on the hush"? I was told that once. Don't brag too much. If you have good things happening and they're telling you, "Nah, man, stop boasting, stop bragging about it." But if you've accomplished something and you're excited about it, you should be able not to brag, but to just be proud of what you've done and to talk about it. But you also have to be in the environments that allow you to express it, because there's some environments where you cannot express the goodness that you're doing. And I'm going to get a little bit more into that, of how you can start aligning with those environments as well. Be humble. I mentioned that. Don't make waves. People would say, like, you talking about yourself or making waves and changing things is a way of you being selfish. Okay. No, it's definitely not. And one of the reasons why that we go through this and we feel that we want to shrink, it's fear. This is the big one right here. So let's say you're entering in a meeting or you're in a school project or whatever the case is. Kids go through this, as adults we go through this. Again, we've been taught. We've been taught this. This is nothing new. We fear rejection. We want to avoid the conflict. We fear the judgment. We fear the failure. And all in all, what does it equal down to? People pleasing. This is a taught behavior. And it can be taught culturally, where we just do what other people want them to do so we could avoid conflict, so we could avoid disrupting environments, so we could avoid failure. But the crazy part about it, if you're going through a season of where you're dismantling certain behaviors within your family and environments, this is going to piss them right off. This part right here, you actually taking up space is going to piss them right off. But respectfully, who cares? Because it's been a constant wheel going and going, and we're people pleasing the entire time. So you have how many people that have inherited people pleasing along the way, and they've just dealt with it and dealt with it. Here you come all of a sudden and you're saying, I'm no longer going to people please. I'm no longer going to do it. I'm going to take a step back. It's going to disrupt the pattern. Growth is one of those things where no matter what you do, no matter how far you're getting, you're disrupting a pattern of people that are used to a certain pattern. You're saying, no, no more. You're cutting it from the knees. No, it can't go any further. And it bugs people because they don't want to deal with the rejection, the conflict, the judgment, or the failure. So they rather sit in the people pleasing seat so that they can, in themselves, they're feeling that they're comfortable. They're not rocking the boat. They're not being too loud. They're not making too many waves. But here you come along and you're saying, no, this doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. Because people pleasing tend to please other people, but then you're sitting back and you're beyond annoyed. You're frustrated. And then you're using that same people pleasing, not just in your personal life and what connections you make in terms of relationships, friendships, so on and so forth. It shows up in your job. It shows up in your career. And if you're trying to get in a sense of, let's say, leadership, how could you people please the people who are working for you in a manager setting? Something to think about. So, how can we start moving on and no longer people pleasing and not doing without guilt? Because guilt, this word right here, is what makes us not set boundaries, and it makes us not put ourselves first because we feel guilty for doing it. And then we think you're selfish, but you're not selfish, you're selfful, because if you don't put yourself first, you can't show up for people. If you don't put yourself first, you can't do the things that you need to do and get it done. Definitely can. So notice when you're shrinking. I'm gonna give you a couple of examples, but notice when you're shrinking. When do I make myself feel smaller? It's a question to ask yourself. When do I apologize when I know, like I said, you did nothing wrong? When are they meetings, conflict, when you're having conflicts with someone, when you're setting boundaries? We talked about boundaries this week, but is it a moment of when you're setting the boundaries and you find yourself, I'm going to shrink just to set the boundary, but to make them feel comfortable? Is it a moment that do you find that your shoulders hunch over? You feel tenseness in your body, your stomach gets upset, your head starts to hurt, maybe your eyes start to twitch. Like, what is going on? Your body will tell you. I kid you not. Our body is like a warning sign, like it will tell us when something's not right. And we have to pay attention to those notice because this is us taking up space. It is going to be uncomfortable for the first little bit, but eventually you got to do it. You got to do it. Remember, a lot of people probably before you have taught you that people pleasing is the way to go. You've noticed that it's not working for you because it makes you feel small. So now you've come to the conclusion that you want to take up space in rooms, in environments without feeling any guilt. It's not going to be an overnight success. It is going to take a little bit of time. So please give yourself some grace in those moments. Number two, why? And the easiest way you could do, you could write this out. Grab a piece of paper, put it in your notepad. I am shrinking because, and there's one thing you need to put here. Honesty. You have to be honest with yourself. One thing I love about journaling or just writing things out in general, it's healing. It's setting a stone. It's setting a pace. So if you write out, I am shrinking because, and you sit with yourself and say, why am I shrinking? You can say it's I've been taught to shrink. I've done it because I've seen my mom and my dad do it. I've seen other people do it. I figured that was the only way I had to live. Be honest with yourself. Now, the next step after you realize what your why is you have to start telling yourself, I'm no longer going to shrink in these spaces because it no longer serves me. And how I'm going to do that is X. And you got to figure out what your X is. Kind of going towards what your X could be is number three. Choose to take up space. This part is the meat and potatoes, nitty gritty. It ain't gonna be easy. It is gonna take some time. But this is the moment where you're going to speak up. Speak up. Give yourself a voice. Oftentimes, when I think about my younger self, I take my 9-year-old self with me wherever I go. And I think about the times where she could not speak up, when she needed to be seen and not heard, or, she didn't really, she had a voice, but didn't have a voice. She had to kind of keep it on a tame. Now I'm like, no, we're speaking up for her because there's moments where she needed to be heard. So now I'm speaking up. And sometimes you can use that as a way of like, who am I speaking up for? You're speaking up for yourself. But what version of yourself? Start sharing ideas. And you could practice this too. I talked about boundaries last week and this week, and use your mirror as a way that you can like kind of like hype yourself up. So you could start using sharing ideas to yourself, speaking to yourself. You're not crazy. Talking to yourself is what most athletes, most probably even doctors, people that have to be in very high stressful situations do just to get through what they got to get through. I talk to myself all the time just to figure out what it is my next step. And this is a great, if you don't like doing that, then grab a piece of paper, go to the local dollar store, grab a book. You probably have plenty of journals in your home or plenty of notebooks, and start actually having a conversation with you and pour everything out. And setting a boundary. This one here, setting a boundary. That's where you also could choose to take up spaces. Like I am, this is how I don't like the way you make me feel, or I don't appreciate X. And as a result, if this persists, I will remove myself out of the conversation, or I will no longer continue this back and forth. Right. But, and even with all of these, you got to stand firm on it. This is where I say honesty is such an important play, because in order for you to get down to your nitty gritty yourself, you have to be an honest person to you. You can't just walk around and think that you're being honest to everyone else when you're not being honest to the most important player, which is you. You are the MVP in your own story. Now, lastly, we're going to get into releasing the guilt. This word holds a lot of us back. And even as a child of an immigrant to Jamaican parents, I used to feel guilty for speaking up, sharing my ideas, and setting boundaries. And it took many years. It took many, many years to finally get them to understand A, who they raised, and B, okay, like we should listen. Took years. So if you're a child of an immigrant and you're parenting your parents in this season, I see you. It's a lot of work, but at the same time, you gotta kind of have to keep the same momentum. It's kind of like when you set a boundary, you have to keep that boundary going. So yeah, four, release the guilt. You may think that you were too much. Like, was I too much in that situation? Did I give too much? Was I too, too harsh? But you gotta understand sometimes too, you think it's harsh, but it's because you've been people pleasing for so long, you don't even know what it is to be assertive, what it is to be stand up for yourself and just be assertive. So it's gonna feel uncomfortable, it's gonna feel like guilt, but it's not. Trust me, you're gonna be okay. So a way that you could also break it down is understand that all of this, the feeling of guilt is normal because you're unlearning not to shrink after being shrunk into a box for so long. I want to kind of give you an idea. I'm gonna do my best. I am not an artist. Please bear with me. I draw stick people. And I'm gonna probably use a stick person in this illustration. So I want you to think about this box right here. This is a box. Hear me out. And then this is the lid on top. Okay. And this is you. I'm gonna put a little. This is you. Notice the stick person is not smiling. The reason why the stick person is not smiling is because they got the lid on top. But by you working through this framework, by noticing, by you figuring out why you're shrinking and being honest with yourself, by choosing to take up space, by speaking up, sharing ideas and setting boundaries, and then slowly removing the guilt. Remember, this framework is not one day type of thing. It's going to take some time. Eventually, what you're going to do is you're going to start moving part of the lid. And then something else is going to happen. The guilt's going to come in. You're going to work through this framework. More of the lid is going to get removed. Then another situation is going to happen. Because unfortunately, life is lifing and things always happen. You work through this framework. Another part of the lid gets moved off. I'm going to change something super quick. The lid's not fully taken off the box, but here's the smile coming on. And one of the reasons why the smile is starting to change on your face, it's not just because you're actually taking up space, it's because you're being consistent. You're proud of yourself for just doing it. Because notice, another situation is going to come up. You remove the lid, and now you realize, I don't ever want to put this damn lid on again. Here's the lid right here. And you're like, yeah, this lid is never going on top of my box ever again. In fact, eventually, the more that things happen, because life is life, people be peopling, nothing you can do about it. You're no longer in the box. Everything that you work towards, it's not a one size fits all. It's not going to happen right away. None of that's going to happen right away. Everything I've done in my life and everything that I've worked towards, it's taken years. But it's consistency, and it's you wanting to no longer, shrink yourself and take up space without guilt. And you wanting the best for yourself in order for it to actually work. Okay? So I'm going to give you an even shorter version of this in the quickest breakdown. You may have heard me say this a couple times, this word called acknowledge. So acknowledge where you are right now. If you feel like you are shrinking, that's at least you acknowledged it, so you know. Congratulations. You're in a good spot because you're not pushing past it. You're not suppressing it. You're actually acknowledging it. Second is you challenge it. Kind of going back to the why. Why do I feel like I'm being shrinking myself in this? No, I don't need to shrink myself. Challenge it. This is where you speaking to yourself and having the conversation with yourself is important. Reframe it. Am I shrinking myself? How can you reframe it? Well, you know what? I'm not going to allow myself to shrink myself in this situation. What I am going to do is X. And then let it go. This is the hardest part. And I'm not talking about Elsa from that dang movie. Never watched it. But this is where you let it go, which is hard for a lot of us because we've been taught to almost hold on to everything because we've been people pleasing and we've been moving with guilt. So again, everything takes time, just like getting you out of this box and getting that smile on your face. It all takes time. All right. That's all I got for you guys for this week for Successful Sundays. I appreciate you coming out. And let me just check the chat real quick to make sure I didn't miss anything. I appreciate you guys stopping in. And I'm here every Sunday, 11 a.m., unless told otherwise. And we have a new episode of the Dope Life Podcast coming out this Tuesday. So make sure you tap in and you check out. I appreciate y'all. Y'all know what to do. Walk with peace. Walk with love.